Hello, my name is Nicholas Morton and I'm a lecturer at Nottingham Trent University. In this short talk I'm going to give you a brief history of St Wilfred's Church, Barrow upon Trent, focusing on its connection to the history of the Knights Hospitaller. So to begin, I'm going to give you a little bit of detail on the Hospitallers themselves. The Hospital of St John in Jerusalem was founded over 900 years ago in Jerusalem by a group of pilgrims from the Italian city of Amalfi. The purpose of this hospice was to provide accommodation and care for pilgrims travelling to the city. Over time, the order grew, especially following the brutal conquest of Jerusalem in 1099 by the armies of the First Crusade. During this campaign and its immediate aftermath, a group of states were established in the coastal regions of the Near East, which are now generally referred to as the Crusader states. The rulers of these states proved to be enthusiastic patrons of the Hospitallers, granting them lands and money, while the order also flourished with the arrival of thousands of pilgrims from Western Christendom, essentially Western Europe. As news of the Hospitallers' work spread, further patrons across Western Europe began to donate property and money to the order, enabling it to set up a network of landholdings in many countries. These included many lands in the Kingdom of England. Over time, the Hospitallers did not remain solely focused on the care of pilgrims and the provision of medical care. The group of states set up in the Near East, known as the Crusader states, became increasingly embattled over time, and so from roughly the 1120s onwards, the Hospitallers began to provide military forces to defend Jerusalem and to expand the borders of Christian territory. Their medical role also expanded, and their hospital in Jerusalem grew to the point at which it could provide beds for 1,000 patients. Most of the Hospitallers' patients are likely to have been Christians, but notably they also provided care for non-Christian patients, including Muslims and Jews. By the mid-12th century, the Hospitallers had become extremely popular. Their landholdings across Western Europe were growing rapidly, and benefactors, ranging from kings down to merchant and artisan families, granted the order estates, donated money, or joined the order in person. Among these was a Derbyshire landowner called Robert of Breakpuy. His family had come to England with William the Conqueror, and like many knights and noblemen of his era, he made many pious donations to institutions of the church. These included the gift of the Church of Barrow on Trent to the Hospitallers in 1165. At this point, the church wouldn't have looked as it does today. The present church was substantially developed by the Hospitallers in later centuries. Nevertheless, this event marked the beginnings of the Hospitallers' history in Barrow. Over time, the Hospitallers built up their lands both in Barrow and the surrounding area until, by the year 1338, they possessed over 80 acres and a substantial manor. Across Derbyshire itself, they similarly acquired a great deal of agricultural land, enabling them to become one of the county's major landowners. And so it was for this reason that they came to play an important role in local history. It is also worth thinking about the purpose of the Hospitallers' estates, both at Barrow and in their hundreds of other landholdings elsewhere in Western Europe. The collective role of these lands was to raise money, resources and recruits, which could then be sent to support the Hospitallers' medical and military activities in the Crusader states. This continued until the overthrow of these states in the year 1291. After that, the Hospitallers' estates in Western Christendom continued to provide support for the Hospitallers' new base of operations on the Isle of Rhodes, just off the coast of Turkey. From Rhodes, the Hospitallers engaged in an ongoing war, mostly at sea, with the Ottoman Empire. And then, with the fall of Rhodes in 1522, they performed the same role out of their base on the Isle of Malta. Matters were also changing in England at the same time, because in 1543, Barrow on Trent, along with the Hospitallers' other holdings in the Kingdom of England, were confiscated during Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries. This therefore marked the end of the Hospitaller presence in this area. So let's now look in more detail at some of the key features of Barrow Church. The church's south wall contains an alabaster effigy depicting a priest with his feet resting on a dog. Recent research has been conducted on this effigy, which suggested it may date back to around 1340 to 1350. This dating would make it one of the earliest, if not the earliest, known alabaster effigies of this era. The alabaster itself is thought to commemorate the church's priest, John de Belton, who became vicar at Barrow in 1343. Near this alabaster effigy is another interesting feature, a representation of an armoured warrior holding a spear and shield, seemingly with other warriors in the background. Exactly when this was created, or what exactly it was supposed to depict, has yet to be satisfactorily established, but the suggestion has been made that it's a 14th century depiction of an armoured hospitaller knight. Images such as this also serve to remind us that the interior of medieval churches would not merely have been plain or unadorned stone or plaster painted white, but were alive with images and patterns, many of them depicting biblical figures or figures associated with a specific church. Another interesting feature is a narrow internal window, or squint, which points directly at the church's altar. Again, this raises the question of why this small internal window was created. The suggestion has been made that this squint was created as part of a now removed anchorite cell within the church. An anchorite was a devout individual who wished to separate themselves from society so as to lead a life of religious devotion and prayer. Perhaps this squint formed part of their small room or cell within the church. In this way, Barrow-on-Trent is extremely important both for the history of Barrow itself, but also for the role it played in former centuries as a waypoint in the Knights Hospitallers' wide network of estates and landholdings that stretched from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the frontiers of the Crusader states.